Hey everyone, it's Gadget here again, and I've got another speed paint for you. This time I'm doing a landscape, which is a bit different for me. Normally I've been doing portraits and character work, but I wanted to do a landscape for my D&D campaign. Do Dragon's Dream of Scorched Sheep. So the background to this one is the party are currently looking for a teleportation gate, which will allow them to fast travel around the world because I want them to get towards the ending soon, because the campaign should be wrapping up pretty soon. And I'm leading them down this path, and I decided, let's try and visualize what it'll look like when they find this teleportation gate. So we start off I did this over 3 sessions. We start the first session with just the kind of the basic blocking out of the shapes of kind of rolling hills, of the outlines of the mountains, some clouds and sky. It's all pretty basic stuff using just kind of solid colors. And then start giving some kind of rough shading just to give everything a little bit of structure. So I can see, what's where, what's when. So I can see what is there and what there should be. Mountains, I quite like doing this technique with mountains. You start with a block color and then you just keep layering up different lines and shapes and just kind of build up the structure from there. I don't know if this is the technique most people use to do mountains, but I seem to quite like it. And I put more detail on in a further session. But it seems to be a very quick and easy way to get some structure to it. And then this is the teleportation gate itself. And I'm just again blocking this out with a kind of a solid color, with a painterly brush, and then we'll put details over the top of it. Like, this is a really quick and rough and ready sketch for me to build on. But yeah, that's the end of the first session. Then we kind of start to move towards the second session. And we pick up and start doing some color. So, I'm trying to then apply kind of like a sandstone color. I don't know if you would make a teleportation gate out of sandstone, but that's kind of what I decided on. Kind of building out the plinth that it's built onto, and then trying to do in the brickwork. So trying to find a decent color for it, and then just doing each individual brick. Trying to make them as random shapes as possible. The kind of the story of this one has this as being quite old, so there'll be some decrepitness to it, and some stones kind of breaking off and not being complete or uniform. So yeah, just getting in each stone here. I'm not worried about the kind of the fade on the side with the painterly brush, with the background color. This is just getting in the structure, and then as I go on, I kind of add more layers to it and build it out, and it starts to look a bit nicer. Then we want to put the kind of the stonework on the plinth, because we want it to kind of look realistic. Like, you have to kind of step up to this thing. It's kind of raised off the top of this mound, grassy knoll, whatever you would call it. And again, just trying to get some actual structure into this one. I end up putting more detail into it in the third session. This is just, trying to get an idea of what it should look like. This is all kind of experimentation, and this tends to be how I do landscapes as well. Just start throwing shapes at it and see what happens. Then I wanted to kind of some control surface, kind of emulating from a little bit of Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, with the way the shaker slate control surfaces look. Also a little bit of Stargate, because you kind of can't help it. The runes on here, the runes are actually put canonically into the storyline, so that's what they will actually look like if you zoom in enough on it. And then I kind of thought, we need to have a focal point for this, so let's have the sun beaming through it. And I'll realise kind of in the next session that, because the sun is so low, this should be sunset. So I end up changing the colour of the sky to sunset. But then, casting some shadows off the hillsides and off the arch itself. I end up redoing those shadows. Then casting shadows onto the clouds, give them a little bit of shape and a bit of texture. Yeah, I initially wasn't happy with those shadows. I think I do 2 or 3 attempts to get these shadows right. Perspective work is something I need to actually spend some time doing. But yeah, so yeah, start of the third session, kind of redoing some of the shadows, and then I also apply a pattern in Photoshop just to give the grass a look. So rather than having the glass be kind of flat green, and just apply a grass pattern to it and turn the opacity down, just so everything's got a bit of structure to it. And then, you know, I add in individual blades of grass where they would be kind of growing up around the platform and the plinth, you know, just to give it an impression of like age and vegetation. And then the next thing I wanted to try was to get everything a little bit mossy. And this is one of those moments. I remember thinking back to like seeing Bob Ross things. This is one of those moments where I start doing something and I think it's going to look terrible until I finish it. You know, it's like you think I'm putting this fucking lump of green here onto these bricks. It's just like, this is going to look terrible. But when I get the layer opacity right and get the kind of the color and the shade right, it actually does end up looking quite good and gives a kind of mossy edge to all the brickwork, which I quite like. I ended up quite liking the look of this one. But God almighty, I was worried about it when I started and think, because this was like 40 minutes work to do all this. I'm like, oh, this is going to look terrible, but I've committed to it now. Yeah, there you go. When I put the opacity down, it looks a bit nicer, it looks a bit aged, and looks like it should be there. Next bit is changing the color of the skybox. To orange. To orange. I end up having to dial that back a little bit of red, and then kind of fade it down so it gets this kind of washed out, hazy effect, or tripping out because I'm playing with the layer styles, and then yeah, some kind of what do you call this? Ring lighting, halo lighting, something. I learned it from Sam Does Art's YouTube channel. But basically, this kind of I have this white light shining off things. I carry on with the mountains, and this is where I start kind of adding the light to the mountains. Everything in the mountains have been shadow, so I wanted to add some light to them to kind of give the shape better. Give the shape better? That's a terrible sentence. To shape things out better. And as you can see, kind of reducing the opacity made it look better there. Same goes for the grass. I just kind of wanted to like detail things up, finish off the shadows, darken them down. But there's one thing missing from this for a D&D party. It's the party themselves. So I did some kind of rough outline sketches of the characters in the party. So this is Stigveld, our barbarian. And then, yeah, get his axe head right. You've got to get the axe right. He'll be mad if the axe is wrong. Then next up is Capri, our warlock, who's a tiefling, and her cat familiar, Proserpine. And then we go for our monk, Calbo, who's a dragonborn. I think that's how you would draw a dragonborn from behind in silhouette. And then last up is our bard, our halfling bard, Treblo Clef. There's a lute there. And then, you know, kind of adjust and create the sizes, get them right, get the positions right, because then what we're going to do is fill them in so they're in shadow. Look at a little cat. Yeah, fill them in shadow. And then we need to actually cast their shadows. So I didn't know the best way to do this, so I copied them all and then just started moving them around. God, I love Photoshop for being able to do this rather than having to draw these individually, and just using the kind of the stretch tool just to stretch them out. Try and kind of shape them against the shape of the plinth. I think I managed to do it all right. I think this looks okay. Trying to give some like shape and texture to everything, then reduce the opacity, and then I think we're done. Yep, that's it. We sign it. We're done. Everything's great. Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt. Excellent. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. I mean, I know I'm not in a position to be a tutor for art or anything, but I really do hope you're kind of enjoying my process and seeing how things go. Next up, I don't know what I have next up. I think I might do the stalker picture that was requested. Try and do that just as a kind of a character art study. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, please do all the YouTubey stuff. So like, subscribe, leave comments, let me know what you think, give me suggestions for things to draw in the future, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now.